At exactly 3:14 a.m., every monitor in Trauma Bay 1 emitted the same relentless tone. Lieutenant Arthur Whitmore was officially pronounced dead. The declaration came from the highest-ranking surgeon at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, witnessed by military physicians, nurses, and one grieving father. To everyone in the room, the fight was over. Only one person knew it had barely begun. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a cold white glow across the bloodstained Trauma Bay. Moments earlier, the room had been consumed by frantic movement, chest compressions, shouted medication orders, the hiss of oxygen lines, and the rhythmic alarms of failing monitors. Now silence ruled. Dr. Alastair Montgomery, Chief of Surgery, slowly stepped away from the operating table. Sweat soaked through his surgical gown, and exhaustion weighed heavily on his shoulders. He removed his latex gloves with a sharp snap that echoed through the room. No one spoke. Standing near the foot of the bed was Admiral Jonathan Whitmore. His dress uniform carried ribbons earned across 3 decades of distinguished naval service, yet none of those medals could prepare him for the sight before him. His only son lay motionless beneath a white surgical sheet. Arthur Whitmore had arrived less than an hour earlier aboard a military evacuation aircraft from a classified operation somewhere in Eastern Europe. The official briefing described a catastrophic training accident. Dr. Montgomery knew better. The dark veins spreading across Arthur's neck resembled black cracks beneath the skin, radiating outward like poisoned roots. They were unlike any chemical exposure documented in military medical records. Every attempt to restart his heart had failed. 3 rounds of epinephrine, advanced cardiac bypass, electrical defibrillation. Nothing worked. Dr. Montgomery looked toward the Admiral before speaking quietly. Time of death, 3:14 a.m. His voice nearly broke. "I'm deeply sorry, Admiral. We've exhausted every option. Whatever toxin entered the system completely shut down his cardiovascular function." The words lingered in the sterile air. Admiral Whitmore never answered. He stared silently at his son's pale face, remembering the determined young officer who had left only weeks before, full of confidence and ambition. One tear escaped despite years of military discipline. He wiped it away almost immediately. Across the room, a quiet nurse continued organizing used surgical instruments as though nothing unusual had happened. Her name was Beatrice Gallagher. To hospital administrators, she was simply an experienced palliative care nurse recently transferred from a private civilian medical network. That identity was fiction. In reality, Beatrice worked undercover for a classified oversight committee investigating a disturbing pattern of unexplained deaths among elite military officers. Officially, she was there only to observe, document, and report. Interference was strictly forbidden. Exposure would mean charges of treason, or worse. As the room prepared for post-mortem procedures, Beatrice glanced one final time toward Arthur. Something caught her attention. A barely noticeable ripple appeared beneath his jaw. Tiny, almost invisible. Anyone else would have dismissed it as an involuntary muscle twitch following death. Beatrice froze. She recognized it instantly. Nightshade 7. She had seen its effects only once before. The classified neuroparalytic agent didn't truly kill its victims. It imprisoned them. The toxin forced the body into an artificial metabolic stasis so profound that modern medical equipment interpreted it as death. Heart activity slowed to nearly undetectable levels. Brain waves fell beneath the sensitivity of conventional monitoring devices. To every physician in the world, the patient appeared clinically dead, but they were still alive, conscious, unable to breathe, unable to move, unable even to blink. Victims remained trapped inside their own bodies, while oxygen deprivation slowly destroyed them from within. Beatrice's pulse quickened. Arthur wasn't dead. He was running out of time. She gripped the stainless steel counter until her knuckles turned white. Her orders echoed inside her mind. Maintain cover. Do not intervene. Report only. Breaking protocol would expose years of covert operations and compromise the entire investigation. She understood the consequences. If she acted, every secret surrounding her assignment would unravel. Her agency would deny knowing her. Military intelligence would arrest her before sunrise. if she survived that long. Dr. Montgomery gently rested a hand on Admiral Whitmore's shoulder. "We'll transfer Lieutenant Whitmore to Sub-Level 4, he said quietly. Department of Defense regulations require an immediate forensic examination because of his security clearance. The Admiral closed his eyes for a long moment before nodding. "Treat him with dignity," he whispered. Orderlies rolled the gurney into position. They began disconnecting the final monitoring cables. Beatrice's stomach tightened. The autopsy would kill him. The first incision would break the fragile metabolic balance created by Nightshade 7. Any disruption to his circulatory system would trigger irreversible cardiac collapse. This time there would be no coming back. She glanced at the wall clock. Less than 5 minutes remained before Arthur disappeared behind the secure doors of the military pathology unit. There was only one possible way to save him. A technique so dangerous that even speaking its name violated every oath she had ever sworn. It wasn't taught in medical schools. It wasn't recorded in military manuals. It came from an ancient Appalachian healing tradition preserved by only a handful of practitioners across generations. The forbidden procedure was known simply as the Hades Shift. Beatrice Gallagher had not learned everything she knew in medical school. Long before she wore hospital scrubs or carried a government security badge, she had grown up deep in the Appalachian Mountains, where winding roads disappeared into forests untouched by modern life. There, her grandmother served isolated communities as a healer, preserving remedies and traditions passed from one generation to the next. Some of those traditions bordered on forgotten folklore. Others had saved lives when conventional medicine had nothing left to offer. Among the oldest teachings was a desperate last resort known only as the Hades Shift. It was never spoken of lightly. The technique demanded absolute precision, unwavering resolve, and an acceptance that failure could cost both patient and healer everything. Decades earlier, mainstream medicine had condemned the practice after a series of disastrous outcomes. Medical boards labeled it reckless pseudoscience, and by the 1970s, every known record of it had vanished from official training. To the modern world, the Hades Shift was little more than a myth. But Beatrice knew one terrible truth. Against the synthetic toxin called Nightshade 7, it remained the only chance anyone had ever seen succeed. She finished wiping down the stainless steel counter, her face betraying none of the storm raging inside her. The orderlies wheeled Arthur Whitmore's body toward the elevator leading to Sub-Level 4. The heavy trauma bay doors closed behind them. That was the moment she made her decision. She would abandon her mission. She would violate every order she had been given. And if necessary, she would steal the Admiral's son from the military morgue to give him one final chance at life. Sub-Level 4 lay hidden beneath the hospital like a bunker from another era. Concrete walls stretched through narrow corridors illuminated by aging fluorescent lights that flickered with an irritating hum. The air felt colder here, carrying the sterile scent of disinfectant mixed with chemicals used in forensic preservation. Everything about the place was designed for secrecy. At 4:05 a.m., Beatrice stepped quietly from the staff elevator. She carried an ordinary medical supply bag over one shoulder. Nothing about her appearance invited attention. Only she knew the bag contained equipment she had assembled in secret over weeks of preparation. Items gathered not because she expected to use them, but because experience had taught her that impossible situations had a habit of becoming real. She paused before turning the final corner. Outside Morgue Bay stood 2 military police officers. Their rifles rested comfortably against their shoulders as they exchanged bored conversation, unaware that the man behind the reinforced steel door might still be alive. Beatrice studied them for only a second. Confronting them wasn't an option. Outrunning them was impossible. That left only one path: distraction. Her fingers slipped into her pocket, wrapping around a small encrypted transmitter no larger than a pager. She pressed the activation switch. Several floors above, a hidden electronic device disrupted one of the hospital's secure utility systems. Moments later, warning alarms erupted through the building. Red emergency lights flashed across the corridor. One guard immediately raised his radio. "Command, this is Post 4. We've got emergency alert from Sector 3. Static crackled before a hurried voice answered with new instructions. Additional personnel were urgently requested elsewhere. The two guards hesitated. One looked back at the morgue door. "The room's sealed," he muttered. The other nodded. "It'll still be here when we get back." Within seconds, both men hurried toward the stairwell, their heavy boots echoing against the concrete until silence returned. Beatrice moved immediately. A clone security card slid across the biometric reader. The indicator light changed from red to green. With a heavy mechanical hiss, the reinforced door unlocked. She slipped inside before it could close again. The morgue was silent. A single overhead surgical lamp illuminated the center of the room. Arthur Whitmore lay motionless upon a stainless steel examination table. The cold storage temperature had drained nearly all color from his skin, leaving him ghostly pale beneath the harsh white light. The dark veins climbing his neck appeared even more pronounced now, spreading toward his shoulders like cracks beneath frozen glass. Every passing minute gave the toxin more control. Beatrice locked the door behind her and engaged the manual security override. No one would enter without forcing the door. She checked the clock. She didn't have long. Setting her medical bag beside the table, she carefully arranged its contents with practiced efficiency. Years of emergency medicine had taught her to silence panic by focusing on routine, one deliberate movement at a time. She drew on fresh gloves. Then she looked at Arthur. "You've held on this long," she whispered softly. "Now it's my turn." For just a moment she wondered whether she was making the greatest mistake of her life. If she failed, Arthur would die. She would be arrested. Everything she had built, including the covert investigation that had consumed years of her life, would disappear overnight. There would be no second chances. But walking away guaranteed only one outcome. She refused to accept that. Closing her eyes briefly, she remembered her grandmother's voice. Asterisk, fear clouds the hands. Compassion steadies them. Asterisk, the words settled her racing heartbeat. When she opened her eyes again, hesitation had vanished. Every movement became calm, deliberate, confident. She leaned over Arthur one final time, studying the faint discoloration creeping beneath his skin. The battle against Nightshade 7 had reached its final moment. There would be no gradual recovery, no cautious waiting, only a single opportunity to challenge what every physician in the hospital believed was impossible. Beatrice placed one steady hand against Arthur's shoulder. "Hold on," she murmured. "I'm bringing you back." Then, with unwavering determination, she began the Hades shift. Seconds crawled by. 5, 10, 15. Nothing happened. The only sound inside the morgue was the steady hum of refrigeration units and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. Beatrice stared at Arthur's motionless face, refusing to believe she had come this far only to fail. "No," she whispered, her voice tightening. "Come on." Every instinct told her there was still time. She leaned over him, committing herself fully to the final phase of the Hades shift, a desperate technique that demanded absolute conviction as much as knowledge. Modern medicine had dismissed it decades ago as dangerous superstition. Tonight, she had nothing else. The silence seemed endless. Then, Arthur's body jolted. At first, it was almost imperceptible, a faint tremor beneath his shoulders. Beatrice held her breath. Another spasm rippled through him. Suddenly, his entire body arched upward with startling force before collapsing back against the steel table. For one terrifying instant, everything was still again. Then Arthur's eyes flew open. A violent gasp tore from his throat as air rushed into lungs that had been frighteningly still. His chest heaved, and he began coughing uncontrollably, every breath sounding raw and painful. "Easy," Beatrice said quickly, moving to steady him before he could fall from the table. "You're safe. Stay with me." Arthur fought wildly, his muscles responding faster than his confused mind. Panic flashed across his face as he struggled to understand where he was. "Look at me," Beatrice insisted. His unfocused eyes finally found hers. "That's it," she said calmly. "Keep breathing. You're in a hospital. You're alive." His breathing remained ragged, but little by little the panic began to loosen its grip. The dark discoloration creeping across his neck slowly faded, replaced by the first hints of returning color. Arthur coughed again, drawing a full breath at last. His trembling hand shot forward, gripping Beatrice's forearm with surprising strength. "They," he rasped. She leaned closer. "Who?" "They knew." His voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. "Who knew, Arthur?" His eyes darted anxiously around the room before settling back on hers. "Commander Hayes." Beatrice's heartbeat seemed to stop. Arthur swallowed painfully before forcing out the next words. "He sold the manifest." His breathing hitched again. "They tried to silence me." A chill raced through Beatrice. Commander William Hayes, the Admiral's most trusted officer, the man who had supposedly recovered Arthur after the failed mission. The official story had blamed foreign operatives. Arthur's words shattered that narrative in seconds. This hadn't been an enemy attack. It had been betrayal. Someone inside the highest levels of the Navy had wanted Arthur dead before he could reveal the truth. Then a metallic clang echoed through the morgue. The reinforced door handle jerked violently. Someone was trying to get inside. Beatrice looked toward the entrance. Arthur was barely conscious. The security override wouldn't keep the door locked forever. Whoever stood on the other side was about to discover that a man officially declared dead was no longer lying still. The manual security override still held, but it wasn't absolute. Outside the morgue, an electronic chime echoed through the corridor. Someone was using a master access credential. A hard knock followed. "Open this door." The voice was muffled through reinforced steel, but Beatrice recognized it instantly. Dr. Alastair Montgomery. Something about his tone made her pulse quicken. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't grieving. He sounded desperate. Another impact rattled the heavy door, followed by the unmistakable mechanical click of the locking system disengaging. Beatrice glanced toward Arthur. He had regained consciousness, but only barely. Every breath looked painfully earned, and his strength was returning in uneven waves. He couldn't defend himself. She quietly reached into her medical bag. Her fingers closed around the grip of a compact sidearm she had hoped she would never need. The reinforced door groaned open. Bright corridor light spilled across the polished floor. Dr. Montgomery stepped inside first. He froze, standing beside the examination table. Beatrice faced him with unwavering focus, placing herself between Arthur and the doorway. Montgomery wasn't alone. A military police officer entered behind him, instinctively scanning the room before his eyes landed on Arthur. His expression changed instantly. Shock replaced routine professionalism. Arthur Whitmore, officially declared dead, was sitting upright. His breathing was labored, his skin pale beneath the harsh lighting, but there was no mistaking it. He was alive. The room fell into stunned silence. The surgical instrument Montgomery had been carrying slipped from his hand and struck the floor with a metallic clang. His face drained of color. "My God," he whispered. Beatrice never looked away. "Nobody comes any closer." Her calm voice carried more authority than a shout. The military policeman hesitated, caught between training and disbelief. Nothing about the scene made sense. Dead patients did not awaken in military morgues. Nurses were not supposed to stand their ground with the confidence of someone accustomed to impossible situations. The hesitation lasted only a heartbeat, but it shifted the balance of the encounter. The officer slowly backed away from Arthur, raising his empty hands to show he wasn't escalating the situation. Arthur swung his legs over the edge of the examination table. The movement clearly hurt. Pain tightened every muscle across his face, yet determination kept him upright. His eyes locked onto Montgomery. "You were going to cut me open," Arthur said hoarsely. The accusation hung in the air. Montgomery shook his head immediately. "I didn't know," he replied, his voice cracking. "I swear I didn't know." He pressed himself against the wall as though trying to create distance from both Arthur and his own guilt. "Commander Hayes told me the examination had to happen immediately. He said it was a classified national security directive. He insisted the evidence would disappear if we waited." Montgomery swallowed hard. I believed him. Arthur stared at him for a long moment. The silence was almost worse than shouting. Beatrice watched both men carefully. Montgomery looked terrified, not like someone protecting a conspiracy, like someone realizing he had been manipulated. She shifted her attention back to Arthur. His condition remained fragile. His breathing was shallow. His complexion still carried a faint bluish tint, and every movement demanded visible effort. Whatever had brought him back had not fully restored him. Time remained dangerously short. She stepped closer to Montgomery. "Where is Commander Hayes?" Montgomery answered without hesitation. "The executive suites." His words came quickly now. "He's with Admiral Whitmore." Arthur's eyes narrowed. Montgomery continued. "Hayes said he needed the Admiral's authorization to transfer your classified mission files. He wanted control of everything connected to the Eastern European operation before anyone started asking questions." Arthur slowly pushed himself to his feet. For a moment it seemed his legs might give way beneath him. Instead, he steadied himself against the edge of the steel table. His breathing remained uneven, but a new determination burned in his eyes. "If Hayes gets those files," he said quietly, "the truth disappears with them." Beatrice met his gaze. She had abandoned her mission to save one life. Now she understood the cost. This was never only about rescuing Arthur Whitmore. It was about exposing a betrayal that reached into the highest levels of military command. Beyond the morgue doors, alarms continued to echo through the hospital. Somewhere above them, Commander Hayes was already making his next move, and they had only minutes to stop him. Arthur's knees buckled. The room tilted around him, and for a terrifying moment it looked as though he would collapse back onto the cold floor. Beatrice caught him before he fell, guiding his arm over her shoulder. "Easy," she said quietly. He struggled to steady his breathing. Every inhale felt shallow. Every exhale seemed to cost more than the last. "We have to move," Arthur whispered through clenched teeth. "If Hayes gets those files, everyone in the Baltic network is finished." The urgency in his voice left no room for argument. Beatrice gave a brief nod. She made sure Dr. Montgomery and the military policeman could not interfere before helping Arthur toward the exit. Before leaving, she retrieved a clean set of surgical scrubs from a nearby linen cabinet and handed them to him. "You'll attract less attention in these." Arthur changed as quickly as his weakened condition allowed. When he finished, he looked more like an exhausted patient than a naval officer who had been declared dead less than an hour earlier. Beatrice studied him carefully. "You don't have to prove how strong you are," she said. "I just have to stay standing," Arthur answered. His determination was unmistakable. Together they slipped into the quiet service corridors beneath the hospital. The emergency alarms still echoed faintly through distant hallways, creating an atmosphere of controlled confusion. Staff hurried between departments, focused on unfolding events elsewhere. It gave Beatrice and Arthur the opportunity they desperately needed. They moved carefully through maintenance passages and service corridors, avoiding the busiest areas whenever possible. Arthur leaned against the wall more than once to catch his breath. Pain radiated through his chest with every movement. Whatever miracle had returned him to consciousness had not erased the damage his body had endured. Several times Beatrice glanced toward him. "You need to slow down. We don't have time. You won't help anyone if you collapse." Arthur managed a tired smile. "My father used to tell me stubbornness was the Whitmore family curse." She almost smiled back. "From what I've seen, he wasn't wrong." Eventually they reached the administrative level. The atmosphere changed immediately. Gone were the clinical hallways lined with stainless steel equipment. Here, polished wood, thick carpeting, and framed naval portraits created the appearance of a government office rather than a hospital. Beatrice raised a hand, signaling Arthur to stop. Ahead, outside Suite 402, 2 Navy sentries stood watch. Arthur lowered his voice. "They're assigned to protect my father." He looked toward the guards. "They're not the enemy." "I know," Beatrice replied. She studied the corridor, weighing their options. A confrontation would only create confusion and delay. What they needed was a brief opening, just enough to reach the Admiral before Hayes completed whatever he was planning. After a moment's thought, she stepped into the hallway. Her posture changed instantly. She projected urgency, calling out for assistance as hospital personnel often did during emergencies. The 2 sentries immediately turned their attention toward her, instinctively responding to what appeared to be an unfolding crisis elsewhere in the building. They exchanged quick words before moving away to verify the report through proper channels. The corridor outside Suite 402 fell quiet. Beatrice looked back toward Arthur. Now, he nodded once. Together they approached the door. Inside Suite 402, grief hung heavily in the room. Admiral Jonathan Whitmore sat alone behind a broad oak desk. His normally commanding posture had given way to quiet exhaustion. In his hands rested a framed photograph taken years earlier on a sunny afternoon at the San Diego waterfront. Father and son stood shoulder to shoulder, smiling without the burdens that now surrounded them. Jonathan stared at the picture as though willing himself back to that moment. Across the room, Commander William Hayes poured 2 glasses of expensive scotch with practiced composure. His immaculate dress uniform was perfectly pressed. His expression carried just the right amount of solemnity. To anyone watching, he appeared to be the loyal friend offering comfort during unimaginable loss. "Please," Hayes said gently, sliding one glass across the desk. "You should have something." The Admiral didn't touch it. Instead, he kept his eyes on the photograph. "When you've buried as many sailors as I have," he said quietly, "you learn to recognize when something doesn't feel right." Hayes remained silent. Jonathan finally looked up. "The report says it was a training accident." His gaze sharpened, but Alastair Montgomery looked terrified. The room seemed to grow still. "What aren't you telling me, William?" For the first time since entering the office, Hayes hesitated. It lasted only a fraction of a second. Then his practiced expression returned. He stepped around the desk, speaking with measured calm. "The full circumstances are highly classified, Admiral." His tone remained smooth. "There are operational details that can't leave secure channels." Outside the office door, footsteps came to a stop. Beatrice and Arthur had arrived. Arthur drew a slow, painful breath. Beyond that door waited his father, and the man he believed had orchestrated everything. Arthur stumbled onto something he was never supposed to see during an operation in the Baltics. Commander William Hayes spoke with practiced calm, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of a man who had rehearsed every sentence. A rogue sleeper cell compromised the mission. By the time we reached him, he'd already been exposed to an experimental nerve agent. We evacuated him immediately, but he lowered his eyes with convincing regret. We were simply too late. The office fell silent. Hayes slowly removed a sleek biometric tablet from his briefcase and placed it on Admiral Jonathan Whitmore's desk. Its screen glowed a reassuring green. "In light of what happened," Hayes continued, "Arthur's operational files must be transferred immediately. The network has almost certainly been compromised." He slid the tablet closer. "If you authorize the transfer, we'll secure every remaining asset before hostile intelligence can exploit the information." Jonathan Whitmore stared blankly at the device. Grief had hollowed him out. The sharp instincts that had carried him through decades of command were buried beneath the crushing weight of losing his only son. Slowly, almost mechanically, he raised his hand toward the scanner. "For Arthur," Hayes said gently. "Do it for him." Jonathan's thumb hovered over the glowing glass. Then, a deafening crash shattered the silence. The double doors burst open with such force that they slammed against the walls. Everyone turned. Hayes spun around in fury. "What is the meaning of—" The words died in his throat. Standing in the doorway was the impossible. Arthur Whitmore, barefoot, dressed in rumpled green surgical scrubs. His face was pale, his movements slow and unsteady, as though every step demanded tremendous effort. Beside him stood Beatrice Gallagher, calm, silent, watching everything. For several seconds, no one spoke. Admiral Whitmore simply stared. His mind rejected what his eyes insisted was true. The photograph still rested in his hand. The death certificate had been signed. He had watched the monitors go silent, yet his son was standing only a few feet away. "Arthur," his voice cracked. "They told me." Arthur swallowed painfully before answering. "They were wrong." He took another slow step into the office. "They almost buried me alive." Hayes didn't move. His carefully constructed composure had vanished. Arthur fixed his eyes on him. "You lied to my father." Every word came with visible effort. "You betrayed the mission." Hayes remained silent. "You sold the Baltic Manifest." Arthur's breathing grew heavier. "I found financial transfers before you poisoned me." The room seemed to freeze. Jonathan slowly turned toward Hayes. Confusion became disbelief. Disbelief hardened into realization. The commander's expression finally betrayed him. The confidence disappeared. In its place came fear. "Jonathan," Hayes began cautiously. "I can explain." "You already did," the Admiral replied, and every word was a lie. Hayes glanced toward the tablet on the desk, then toward the doorway. He realized there was no version of events that could restore control. Years of deception had unraveled in less than a minute. The silence stretched. Finally, Admiral Whitmore stepped forward. His movements were calm, measured, controlled, not driven by panic, not by vengeance, by certainty. "You used my grief." His voice was barely above a whisper. "You looked me in the eyes and asked me to help you erase my son's legacy." Hayes opened his mouth again. No words came. Outside, hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor. Security personnel were finally responding to the disturbance. Jonathan never looked away from Hayes. "You will answer for everything." The office door filled with naval personnel. They entered expecting confusion. Instead, they found an impossible scene. The Admiral stood facing his most trusted officer. Commander Hayes looked as though the world had collapsed around him, and Lieutenant Arthur Whitmore, a man officially declared dead less than an hour earlier, was standing beside the doorway. No one knew what to say. Jonathan spoke first. "Commander William Hayes is relieved of duty." His voice carried the unmistakable authority of command. "He is to be taken into custody pending investigation for treason, conspiracy, and the attempted destruction of classified intelligence." No one questioned the order. Within moments, Hayes was escorted from the office. His elaborate deception had ended. Jonathan turned back toward Arthur. For the first time since entering the room, neither of them spoke. The Admiral crossed the distance, separating them. He embraced his son carefully, mindful of his obvious injuries. Arthur closed his eyes. For a long moment, neither father nor son cared about classified files, covert missions, or conspiracies. Only that they had found each other again. "I thought I'd lost you," Jonathan whispered. "You almost did," Arthur answered quietly. He looked toward the doorway. If she hadn't believed what no one else could. His words trailed off. Beatrice was gone. No farewell. No explanation. Only an empty hallway stretching into silence. She had disappeared as quietly as she had arrived. The official investigation began before sunrise. Admiral Whitmore personally ordered every classified file connected to the Baltic operation secured, while trusted investigators quietly identified others who had assisted Hayes to protect surviving undercover operatives and prevent the remaining conspirators from fleeing. Arthur Whitmore's official status remained unchanged. According to every public and military record, Lieutenant Arthur Whitmore was still dead. For weeks he recovered in a secure government medical facility, known only to a handful of senior officials. The deception became the perfect shield. Everyone hunting him believed they had already succeeded. As for Beatrice Gallagher, every trace of her employment vanished. Personnel records disappeared. Security logs contained unexplained gaps. Even surveillance footage failed to provide a complete picture of where she had gone. By dawn, she was simply another anonymous figure walking through the rain-soaked streets of Washington, a ghost returning to the shadows. Somewhere, another mission was already waiting. Another official report would eventually declare case closed. Another impossible truth would be hidden beneath layers of bureaucracy. And when that day came, Beatrice Gallagher would be there once again, watching, waiting, ready to uncover the lie that everyone else accepted as fact.